You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those birds! Birds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got us a family here. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast, the official podcast of the Alamo Drafthouse, Winchester.
Welcome to another edition of the ItModcast podcast. Joining me is Lisa Gullickson.
Quick, suck it before the venom reaches my heart.
Wife Dork.
La 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 la. I started singing, then I got shy.
And also joining us is Brad Gullickson.
And for gosh sake, watch your language.
That's not going away anytime soon.
Mouth Dork.
Share your pain with me and gain strength in the sharing.
Yeah. And I'm your host, Darren Smith.
Warm. Warmer. Disco.
The Disco Dork. Our Father, which art in heaven, let him fucking stay there. And welcome to another edition of the ItModcast podcast. Yay!
Yay! That has to have been a quote of yours before.
What, mine?
Yeah,
oh, yeah. Yeah.
Star Trek 5.
But today is the 30th anniversary of Star Trek 5, The Final Frontier. And, we've celebrated that film many times on this podcast.
Yeah.
And I think I can celebrate it again, Lisa.
It's worth celebrating.
Have you done the rewatch today?
I
Yes,
did
he
do
did.
the rewatch today.
Okay.
Right before you got here. That's what I
Okay.
was watching.
All right. Did you have some marshmallows?
I did not. I should have. I was surprised by its anniversary this morning. I woke up. I know. I wasn't paying attention. I got onto Twitter and I think StarTrek.com had put out a tweet. And I was like, oh, dang. And then so all day today, I've just been tweeting out Star Trek 5 love.
Yeah.
I wish I had prepped a little bit better and written an article or two around it. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? So I'm celebrating it here on the ItModcast. You know, like one of my favorite memories, and I shared this today on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
Is the Leonard Nimoy tribute episode that we did with Matt back in the day after he had passed away. And we ended that episode by reenacting the campfire sequence from Star Trek 5.
Yeah.
And I re-listened to that this morning also.
How great was it?
So good. Your bones, sir. You have a good bone.
Really?
Yeah, you have a good
Thank
bones.
you. It's all the milk I drink.
Yeah. So that's a great episode. If you have not heard our Leonard Nimoy tribute episode, I'd recommend our listeners go back in time and celebrate Star Trek 5 with that. And also, we did an episode with Gabe Ruzin, the former programmer at the Alamo Drafthouse in Ashburn, after he screened Star Trek 5 to Film Club.
That was great.
Oh my God. Like one of the highlights of my life was hosting that screening.
Yeah.
Thanks to Gabe. So thank you, Gabe. And then he came on to the podcast and we did a review cast of Star Trek 5.
Yeah.
And I listened to a little bit of that today too. And that's a lot of fun as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hit up the archives.
Hit up the archives.
Hit up the archives.
Yeah.
Wife Dork.
Yes.
It's kind of a rhetorical question because I kind of already know, but the listeners need to know, how was your week in Dork?
I've had a fortnight in Dork, and I have seen
that's right.
so many fucking movies since the last time I saw you. I've seen Aladdin.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Cocoon for the first time. I'd never seen Cocoon.
Really? Oh, man. Darren, showing Lisa Cocoon. Funny.
I really enjoyed it. For
Yeah?
some reason, I like in my brain, I got because I got crossed in my mind Cocoon and the Mothman Prophecies, which is another movie I haven't seen.
Very different movies.
Two very different movies. So I still haven't seen Mothman Prophecies.
Guess what? I'm not showing you that one.
But yeah, so I was kind of surprised where it was like a dramatic comedy about, I don't know. I had no idea what it was about, it turns out.
But how great are some of those boner metaphors?
Wonderful. Oh, what was the one that we kept telling each other?
A cat couldn't
A
scratch
cat couldn't
it.
scratch it.
Oh,
that
it's
should have
so
been my
hard.
quote.
A cat couldn't scratch it.
I love that.
Wilford Brimley.
Yeah.
Good luck. Wilford
That's a good
Brimley. I
one.
miss that guy.
You know, he was 51 years old in Cocoon.
Shut up.
Yeah, 50.
Really?
Yeah, 51.
He looks horrible.
You said it. I mean,
He looks
I was going to
awful.
say he looked older.
That is some hard
I
living.
mean, they are playing him up in age, but you know, he's 51. Tom Cruise is 53 in Rogue Nation. when he's like climbing up
don't
that
do that,
pole.
Brad. Don't do that to Mr. Brimley.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just saying, Brimley, get Scientology. Scientology will help you out.
Jesus.
I've converted.
I saw Booksmart.
Oh, yeah.
I saw
What'd you think of that?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
Me too.
Did you see it? You liked it?
Yeah, I saw it.
I liked it too.
It's a coming of age story. I don't know if I'll necessarily be talking about it at the end of the year.
Okay.
But I thought it was super fun. I want to talk about it with Brian.
Okay.
Sucks that he's not here.
Yes.
Yeah, Brian, what's up? I want to talk Turtles and Batman, and you're not here. What's going on?
He's making money.
What
is he though?
I don't know.
Right
He's
before
been
we hit
Facebooking
record,
today.
that's right. I've seen him on Facebook.
We're stalking him.
Okay.
We're judging him. How busy does
Keeping
he
tabs.
really
I'm just
seem?
waiting on that Batman Ninja Turtles letterbox review.
I saw Godzilla 1954, followed by Godzilla King of Monsters. Really fun double feature. I didn't see it as a double feature. I saw 1954 one night, and then the next night I saw Godzilla King of Monsters. I recommend doing that.
Lots of callbacks.
Lots of callbacks. I saw Ma. I saw Always Be My Maybe. That's something Brad and I watched together. I've seen Dark Phoenix.
Wait, so you've seen every movie, basically? Just say that. So
I've seen
every
all
movie.
of the things.
This is what happens when I leave the apartment for a few days.
I joked earlier, you've been holding her back,
Yeah.
right?
Turns out I read a book.
Yeah, what was the book?
What was the book? The Rest of Us Just Live Here. It's about like a town that's Sunnydale, Buffy Sunnydale-esque. And it's the story about all of the kids in that town who are not part of the Scooby Gang. So it's they're kind of at the fringes of this hellmouth type situation, and they're just kind of living their lives. I thought it was really entertaining.
I like that idea.
It was I liked it, and they would start each chapter with like a little blurb of what's going on with the Scooby Gang. What they call them, the Indie Kids, with the Indie Kids storyline, and then the center of the story was this high school kid who has a crush on his best friend, but he is living with severe OCD and is trying to manage his OCD while keeping it from his parents because his parents are kind of controlling. It's like that kind of story. So it's a coming of age story, but a little twist on it that you wouldn't necessarily expect.
That's cool.
I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
But what I really want to talk about is the movie that I've seen twice in the theater, because after I saw it with Lisa Bell Roden, friend of the podcast, and Lindsay Thomas, friend of the podcast, I just had to see it with Brad because I loved it so much. And so when Brad got back from the Overlook Film Festival, I was like, we got to go see Rocketman.
And I was like, hold up. First, I got to watch Dark Phoenix. Then I got to watch Godzilla. Then I'll watch your Elton John biopic. I do not like musical biopics. They're my least favorite type of film.
I was not looking forward to this movie at all.
Really?
Yeah, because when I saw the trailers, I was still kind of burned by how just awful Bohemian Rhapsody was. I really found it to be just the worst of the worst when it comes to biopics.
What's crazy is that, Bryan Singer leaves Bohemian Rhapsody and they bring Dexter Fletcher on to finish that film. Dexter Fletcher gets done making that movie and then goes and makes his own biopic about Elton John.
Wait, Dexter Fletcher did Rocketman?
Yes.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So he's like, look, I had to take that turn across the finish line, and now I'm going to show you what I would do with a musical biopic.
Wow.
And and so the trailer kind of tipped the film's hand, I think, with some of the fantasy elements that in the context of just a more or less straightforward biopic, I don't think would have worked. But the fact that Dexter Fletcher made not just a regular run-of-the-mill biopic, but an actual musical with huge dance numbers, with emotional resonance, with visual metaphor, I think that this film is a masterpiece, and it is breaking my heart that Bohemian Rhapsody won Oscar for Best Picture last year.
Not Best Picture. Was it Best Picture?
Yeah.
No.
Right?
No, Green Book was Best
Oh,
Picture.
whatever.
Rami Malek won for Best Actor.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. I have written off that entire
Oscars. That Oscar, yeah, it's dead. Dead to us.
But, like, the fact that, Bohemian Rhapsody is now an Oscar-winning...
And it made tons of money, and it's making way more money than Rocketman is.
Really?
We went to see Rocketman at AMC Tyson's Corner on a Saturday, and we were in Theater 16, which is the smallest theater, and it was not full.
No.
It
By
a lot.
A lot not full.
It's only been out like 2 weekends, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Huh.
It was a weird crowd, too.
So all of that is to say, I went into this film super skeptical.
Same.
But when I saw that opening number where a rock-hardened Elton John in a devil jumpsuit goes back in time and sings The Bitch Is Back with his childhood self in this huge dance number where all of the dancers are in kind of like a
it's like Pleasantville.
Sepia-toned
Yeah.
or jewel-toned kind of Instagram filter, 50s period costume. I had chills. I had no idea. In fact, I didn't know that Taron Egerton was doing the singing until, because that's how disinterested I was in this film. I didn't know anything about it until Lisa Bell mentioned it to me before the movie. Like, Taron Egerton did all of his own singing. I was like, what? And
he's so good.
He is so amazing. And apparently, when the film was in the making and Taron Egerton was working with Elton John told him, like, don't do your impression of me. Sing these songs the way that you would sing them. And I think that was the best advice that could possibly happen for a biopic, because he's not doing an impression. He is putting himself as an actor into the scene and pulling out the reality of what was going on in Elton John's life. And I think that, like, amazing singer, dancer,
super funny,
Oscar-worthy performance.
Yeah,
he
really?
like literally does it all. He is amazing.
You compare his Elton to Malik's
the
Freddie
thing-
Mercury, and it's so different. It's a totally different approach, but it's the approach that I appreciate, as Lisa's saying. And, Malik is putting in dentures, and he's kind of doing like a Saturday Night Live take on Freddie Mercury, whereas Egerton is doing a performance. That is his.
He's not lip syncing, and this is like, some people feel the opposite of this. To me, I don't want to watch lip syncing.
I mean, they're not singing it live.
Well, he's lip syncing to his own voice.
Yeah, right.
He's because to me, I look at a person and somebody else's voice comes out of their mouth acoustically. That just doesn't make sense to me. And
it's a big Lisa hang-up.
And people who do not sing do have no idea what singing looks like.
That's correct. I don't.
So when you see someone peacocking around, lip syncing to somebody else's voice with no idea of how singing looks, like, it just looks bizarre to me. It just looks off. And because all of the actors were doing their own singing, the way that the music is used is just... It's just really well done. Also, Jamie Bell as Bernie Taupin.
He's great in it.
He's great in it. And a lot of the heart of the film is this partnership romance between these two men. And not like a romantic romance, kissy huggy, because Bernie Taupin is a straight man. But they have this brotherhood of creatives where Bernie Taupin writes the words, and then Elton John is able to deepen the meaning of them through his music. It was a true collaborative relationship that clearly in the making of this film and in working with Elton John had this profound influence on, obviously, Elton John's career, but on Elton John's understanding of himself as an artist and as a person, to have another person to reflect your art off of. I don't know. I just thought it was beautiful. Also, the two kids who play the young versions of Elton John. Matthew Ilesley plays the very young Elton John or Reggie. And Kit Connor, who plays kind of the tweenager age of Elton John. Two great kid actors, really wonderful singers and dancers. I work with singing kids, and Lisa Bell goes like, don't you ever get sick of children singing? And I'm like, no, I love children singing. It's like one of my favorite things ever. And to see it done so well. Even just the sound mixing of it. These are kids who can really actually sing. So you're not working with, like a little pee-pee poo-poo voice. You're working with a real voice. It was just so good. I just think that what makes this film so special is it really uses the vocabulary of what a musical is. So a lot of the love I think of I hate to compare. I should stop comparing two films. It's not fair. But I think a lot of the resonance of Bohemian Rhapsody is people going back and going like, oh, I love Queen's music. Queen's music is amazing. And I think that too. I mean, I was toe tapping in the theater. That music is great. But the way music is used within the context of a musical is that the music heightens the experience. The music doesn't just say the words that people are saying, but it also, through orchestration, expresses every layer of emotion. It creates this gauze of fantasy over everything, so even more can be expressed.
When you watch Moulin Rouge, the Baz Luhrmann film, and that was like the first time I had ever seen like popular music used in a musical context, and how they'll take like a Kylie Minogue song or a Madonna song or whatever, and then they use that to heighten the emotion of the scene, right? So they do that in Rocketman, and they take Elton John's songs and then they transition them into different characters within the movie to tell their emotional experience, not just Elton's.
Yeah, and so the songs are not presented in any kind of like chronological way. They're picked to not tell the literal truth of the story, but to tell the emotional resonance of each scene. So one of my favorite musical moments was at the beginning of the film as we're getting to know Reggie Dwight as a child, Elton John as a child, and they use the song I Want Love, and that song is passed from the young Elton who feels isolated from his parents because his parents are kind of using him as a way to get back at each other. Like the mom fakes interest in Elton John to show her husband, like, see, you don't take interest in me or our family. The father uses Reggie as a way to go, like, this is how children should be brought up. Children should be brought up to be tough. Children shouldn't be hugged and loved. So they're kind of using their son as the crux of an argument. So he's not feeling that love of his family. So he starts the song, but then the song goes to his father, through the text goes through the lips of his father, through the lips of his mother, and then ends with through the lips of his Nana, his grandmother, who is a very supportive figure, who really becomes the mentor and parent of Reggie and really supports his dreams. And they're each singing in their true voice, which is just exquisite. So you get to hear the purity of a child's voice.
Who's playing the Nana? Is it someone recognizable?
No, not to me. I mean, I'm sure it's a well-established British actress. Bryce Dallas Howard is the mother.
Yeah, and she uses this kind of biting tone. She's a very embittered woman. I think a complicated character.
Yeah. She can sing. Bryce Dallas Howard can sing.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that they're doing it in the film.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Stephen McIntosh is the dad. He's from Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah.
He's Winston.
Yeah, Winston.
Yeah. But I love that.
Who's
moment.
Rob Stark?
He plays the nefarious lover / business manager of Elton John.
Oh, okay.
Right. There's really like 3 chapters of this story. Like there's the childhood element, and then there is this kind of manipulative romance between Elton John and
Rob Stark.
And Rob Stark, this manager guy.
It has the same plot that so many musical biopics. It's, the rise. I get fame, I get money, I get drugs, I get alcohol, I get sex. It destroys me.
No.
I fall. I find recovery and true family and love from the people who really matter to me.
Yeah.
And, redemption.
I just want to make a short point of like another comparison between Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocketman, which is unfair, but
because one
the
is
way
1,000 times better.
That sex gets wrapped up in, it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and those 3 things are bad and inherently evil, and obviously being a gay man, growing up in the 50s and then gaining fame in the 60s and 70s and having to deal with all of the stigma of being, a gay man and how in Bohemian Rhapsody, in both of these situations, both rock and rollers are dealing with, meaningless sex and kind of that kind of thing.
Well, and the stigma, as you're saying.
And the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that in Rocketman, at first, the love and the not necessarily love, but the sex between Elton John and
Rob Stark
is joyful and beautiful, and the fact that it was later used, to manipulate Elton John because he was young and naive. But it wasn't the sex that was evil. It was the manipulation that was evil.
The sexuality in Bohemian Rhapsody is very masked and hidden. Like it's
masked and
acknowledged.
hidden, but it's presented as this is another symptom of his dysfunction. Where in Rocketman, this is another way that this artist is being neglected. He's not being like the term loved properly. His mom, when he tells his mom he's gay, she says, "Well, you'll never be loved properly." Like it, I don't know. Like to me, it just presented like
sex is not bad or evil
is not
in
bad
Rocketman. No,
it's
people
are bad and evil, and people want to make you the person that they want in their lives. And I think that the way that Rocketman comes full circle, and we do know Elton John is in a really happy relationship. He's finally retired, and he's joyfully raising 2 sons with his husband. Like, to me, that's like a more complete story, which isn't fair because, in Bohemian Rhapsody, he eventually died, and he never got to live his full story. And who would he be if he still lived today? Yeah. But I don't know.
To me, it's all about how Bohemian Rhapsody presents homosexuality as
something gross and yucky.
I mean, I don't know if I would be that extreme that it presents homosexuality as gross and yucky, but it won't allow itself.
It's something. It's presented as something shameful, another source of shame, and they try to do the thing where they bring the guy in the end, and he presents like this false boyfriend to his parents, like, "See, I can be happy. I can be happy in this life," but it was never like I don't know. Anyway, I'll close my little Week in Dork because I'm talking forever, but it's because I loved this film. But I think because this biopic was presented as a musical, the more fantastical elements seemed in the right place, and the way that musicals allow to show more layers of emotion and reality. So like those elements that bugged me in the trailer of the audience, lifting, and then Elton John being in the pool and seeing his younger self, like they didn't feel out of place. and the framework of the story is Elton John starts the movie in rehab and in an AA type situation, and he uses that as a context to tell the story of his life. I don't think that would have worked if this wasn't a musical, but the fact that the vocabulary of a musical allowed a, ragged, rock and roll, exhausted Elton John to confront his parents, to confront his childhood, to confront the biases he held against himself, I just thought it was just really beautiful. And there's a moment at the end of the film that I will not spoil, but to me, it just felt so good. It felt very uplifting. And I totally cried at the end. I thought it was awesome. But I think Taron Egerton is just absolutely amazing. I think he deserves all of the credit in the world for his awesome performance. I think Dexter Fletcher is a genius and works with geniuses. I think that the orchestration of all of Elton John's songs is just perfect. And I just, when I grew up, like, Lion King came out when I was in 4th grade. So to me, Elton John has always been Disney. He's always been this kind of an oldies, He's always been kind of, despite like my conservative upbringing and him being gay, there was always a wholesomeness to Elton John, where he's like a dweeby guy who writes really compelling music. Yeah. So it never occurred to me that Elton John was this like crazy, sex crazed, drug crazed, cocaine addicted guy. Like, to me, he was always just like, like circle of life, man. that was him. So yeah. And I love that now I have that story. I'm not a person who goes to Elton John music for kicks and shits and giggles. Yeah. But I am I do have now the soundtrack of this musical on my phone, and I think he's a total genius, melodically a total genius, and the way he was able to translate Bernie Taupin's poetry, which is not traditionally very like pop lyrical, He is a real poet. He's more like a Paul Simon, or a Bob Dylan. But of course, he didn't write his own.
To me,
music.
It all comes down to the presentation, right? Yeah. I don't care about Elton John. I've never been a big Elton John fan. His music was, Crocodile Rock, yeah, Rocketman, yeah. But I've never been an Elton John fan. Queen, on the other hand, frickin' love Queen. Yeah. Queen's amazing to me. I grew up on Queen. I love Queen. But Bohemian Rhapsody is just like, here's the same old crap. And also terrible editing, weird performance, filled with lies, just total garbage. And then here comes Rocketman. It's like, oh, guess what? Cinema is cinema. Like, let's embrace everything about the medium to present this boring rags to riches, to rags to redemption story that we've seen 1,000 times, and does it as a musical. And it's vibrant and stunning and revelatory for a genre that should be this all the time. Like, when you experience Elton John's music through the lens of a musical, you engage with it in a way that you don't when it's just watching them. Oh, I'm coming up with a song now. I'm in the studio doing the song, and now I'm in a stadium doing the song.
And we've seen films fail at jukebox musicals.
Yeah. Like Bohemian Rhapsody.
Bohemian Rhapsody is not a musical. Yeah, I'm talking Jersey Boys.
Oh, yeah.
I'm talking Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia's fun, Lisa.
Mamma Mia too. They're fun. But jukebox musicals are hard. Moulin Rouges do not happen all of the time. Yeah. And I think the way that they were able to take the richness of Elton John's repertoire and weave it into a narrative that tells a story that is, if not all the parts literally true, it's certainly emotionally true to maybe Elton John and emotionally true
to its audience.
me.
To its
me.
audience.
I rattled off all of the movies I was able to see in the past 2 weeks. And this is the only one I feel like I'm going to be talking about at the end of the year. And maybe Aladdin, another musical I really enjoyed.
Boy.
But for me, I mean, I'm not going to say I like it more than Endgame, but I liked it more than Captain Marvel. So I don't know.
There's that.
Everything must be compared to an MCU in this
I feel
household.
like I've gotten I feel like I've gotten into the weeds talking about this movie. But if you have not seen it, do see it. And it's a shame that Brian is not on this podcast because he gave it 2.5 stars and I wanted to rip into him.
Oh.
But I won't. I'm gonna tell Brian why he loved it and changed his mind.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it so I can have an opinion too.
Yay!
All right.
Brad's Weekend Dork. I'm
Brad,
so sorry.
how was your week in
I was enjoying
Dork?
your weekend Dork. Good. It was great. Lisa and I weren't here on the podcast last weekend. Really enjoyed being the audience to last week's Weekend Dork.
Yay.
Excited to listen to you and Brian's Fistful. But the reason I wasn't there is because I was in New Orleans. Billy and I went down to the Overlook Horror Film Festival there to partake in a few movies, partake in a whole lot of food, and all these other events that were centered around the Overlook. So the Overlook Film Festival started out in Colorado at the Stanley Hotel, the hotel where The Shining was filmed. And gosh, I would love to have partaken in a horror film festival within the Stanley. That must have been quite an experience.
Amazing.
Yeah. And it's now moved down to New Orleans, and it goes from Thursday night to Sunday, and it's kind of like Lost Weekend on Thursday where they show a couple movies and then, the real thing kicks off on Friday. So Thursday, we drove to Chattanooga, stayed at our friend Bex's place, picked her up, and then we drove down to New Orleans on Thursday. And, from Chattanooga to New Orleans, that's like an 8-hour drive. And we got there at 5 o'clock. The first movie was The Dead Don't Die. It starts at 7. So we got to the Airbnb, threw our stuff down, and we're like, I need food. We're starving to death. And well, let's find the theater and let's just walk into the first theater that we see, or first restaurant that we see. And there's one right next to the theater, which was Le Petit Theater. And the way the Overlook works is it's not like Fantastic Fest. It has multiple theaters around the French Quarter that you go to. And so we go to the Le Petit Theater and we go to the restaurant Tableau. It turned out to be way more expensive than I thought it was going to be. Like, we dropped some cash, but we were hungry. I had barbecue shrimp and grits. It was delicious. And then we watched The Dead Don't Die, the new Jim Jarmusch movie, which I really enjoyed. I've seen a lot of mixed reviews out of it. If you're expecting Only Lovers Left Alive or Ghost Dog or The Limits of Control or Down by Law or Mystery Train, it's not like any of those movies. It's unlike any Jim Jarmusch movie. The way I describe it is it's Jim Jarmusch at his most silly and his most reverent of a particular film. Like, it is very much in love with Night of the Living Dead and George Romero. And then maybe just like that era of genre film as a whole. Like, I'm not going to spoil anything, but like, if all you've seen is a trailer and you're just like, oh, it's Adam Driver saying ghouls. There's other stuff going on in the movie that's very strange. And I could see people being put off by it. But Caleb Landry Jones is in the movie.
Yeah.
He plays this guy who runs a gas station / VHS place, who gets drop-offs of Fangoria magazine from the RZA, who's a UPS driver. And there's like a visual gag involving that I find so damn funny and so stupid. Danny Glover's in it. Steve Buscemi's in it. Larry Fessenden's in it. Chloe Sveni's in it. Selena Gomez is in it. It's a crazy cast. Yeah. Bill Murray, of course. But I had so much fun just living in this town. And
Tilda Swinton's in it, right?
Swinton, yeah, she's the mortician / samurai aficionado. It's bizarre and it's weird and it's dumb and it's just really sweet and kind of sad also at times. Yeah, I had a blast with it. Is it my favorite Jim Jarmusch movie? Absolutely not. It's no Ghost Dog.
Yes.
But I just think it's very unique, and only Jim Jarmusch could have made that movie.
Yeah.
It's not a film that I'm going to show my parents, but I liked it. So I liked it a lot. I followed that up with Ma. I am on Team Ma. Like, I had no anticipation for that movie. You're like, oh, Octavia Spencer, she's rad. Everyone likes Octavia Spencer.
Yeah.
And I found the movie to be very sad. Like, I found it to be a very sad story.
Yeah.
About bullying and the repercussions of a person's actions on another person's life. I think the movie skims over the racism involved in that story, and I wish it addressed that stuff.
Yeah.
But chooses not to, because it just wants to tell the sort of the slashery results of the events that sparked Ma down this path.
Yeah.
And there are some other side elements to her story and what's going on in her household that are revealed.
Oh,
You're like, oh, you reveal these things. Whoa, can we address those? Can we talk about those? No, we're not. Okay, whatever. But there are moments where you're watching this film and it starts with Octavia Spencer as Ma getting alcohol for these bratty, rich kids. And she invites them over to their house and she throws a party, a place for them to all get drunk. And there's like this moment where Octavia Spencer is doing the robot. And there is like such menace to the robot and to the ignorance of these kids. Like, kids, when an adult invites you over to party with them and does the robot with you, that's a red flag. You need to get out. She's going to start sewing up your lips. Be careful. And I loved how that basement party was shot.
Yeah.
I really, really liked it. Like, does it stick the landing? No, probably not.
Yeah.
For a lot of those reasons I just mentioned. But I had a good time with it. I was surprised. I'm like, Blumhouse, I like what you're doing. Keep doing it.
I had a real weird experience watching Ma, because I, again, went to the AMC, Tyson's Corner, and somebody must have just dropped off their 3 12-year-olds. They were like, because I was like, it's going to be a busy night. I'm going to sit in the second row so that all of the, everybody's sitting behind me so nobody can ruin my experience. And then like 3 12-year-old boys come in and they all have like huge things of soda and popcorn and candy, and they sit like 4 seats away from me.
No.
But they, and the thing with little kids in the theater is that when things get awkward, like they get like squirrely. And so they were like they started 4 seats away from me, but sometimes they were 6 seats away from me, and sometimes they were 2 seats away from me.
What?
They were like bouncing around. I swear to God, there is at one point in the film where one kid was sitting in the middle, and a kid on one side was holding one leg, and a kid on the other side was holding the other leg. So it was like that Grover alphabet book, and this kid with his butt was showing us the letter V. Like, literally, it was... These kids were nuts. They were on their phone. They were super annoying. But the entire time, I was going like, kids, watch this film. Because even though the message about, people who are traumatized will come back to kill you, like people who are traumatized become crazy people, like that's a really complicated message. But the message of someone may look like your mom or your cool aunt, or someone might look harmless, but there is no evidence that just because someone looks harmless does not mean that they are.
And that they've bought you a 6-pack.
Well, the thing is, that's really like teenager thinking. Teenagers go like, I'm mature enough to have alcohol, and if only an adult could see that, and we could reason with them, of course they would give us alcohol. And so somebody going like, oh, yeah, you should be able to drink alcohol, but you should be able to drink alcohol in a safe place. Come to my home. I'm wearing scrubs. I'm walking a 3-legged dog. How bad could I be? You know what I mean? I think that is something that 12-year-olds should see.
But
of course, there were
they
certain
didn't get
scenes. I don't know because I didn't get to conduct the interview I wanted to. Because
those three boys are going to end up in somebody's basement with their lips sewn shut.
Yeah.
I know, and that is a complicated message. Like, don't talk to strangers and tell me how you feel about this film. But yeah.
So I enjoyed it. That was how I kicked off the Overlook. The next day, Billy and I spent the entire time interviewing really rad people. We spoke to Larry Fessenden about his new movie Depraved, which is kind of a take on the Frankenstein myth. It brings it to the modern era. I really enjoyed that. It's got a great central performance. I'm blanking on the actor's name who plays the monster, but I really, really liked him. I saw... we spoke to Mick Garris about his new anthology horror film, Nightmare Cinema, which is basically him doing what he was doing on Showtime with Masters of Horror, finding his favorite horror filmmakers, bringing them all together and making a movie. And we spoke to three of the producers of Horror Noir, A History of Black Horror. I spoke to the woman who wrote the book that the documentary is based on, Dr. Robin R. Means Coleman. I spoke to the producer / novelist Tana Nariv Dew about it, and then the producer Ashley Blackwell about it. We had a really great conversation centered around that. And I spoke to Adam Egypt Mortimer about his film Daniel Isn't Real, which was my favorite film of the festival. One of my favorite films of the year. It's produced by Elijah Wood's company, Spectravision, that produced Mandy and so many amazing movies right now. I'm hoping, I'm trying to remember what the release date is. This could be like a Fantastic Fest kind of movie, maybe, but it might also actually end up being out by the time Fantastic Fest is. Not sure. I do want all the dorks to watch it. I'm going to tell you the first 10 minutes of Daniel Isn't Real. I'm not going to go beyond the 10 minutes. But the movie opens up with a diner in New York. And, there's some small talk. There's a waitress. Guy comes in with a shotgun, kills everybody.
No.
Blows them all away. Like, boom, 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 boom. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Wake up, audience. Very scary. Then we cut to a home in which a mother and a father are screaming at each other. It sounds like divorce is in the future. And we see this little boy, Luke, watching his parents screaming at each other. He walks out of his house, starts walking down the street, and he comes across the crime scene of this diner. And he looks at this dead body of a woman, the waitress. And we hear a tear. We hear like a tear in reality. And then the camera pans over, and there's now another little boy standing next to Luke. And this is Daniel, his new friend. And they are best of buddies. They go to playgrounds together. They play action figures together. And they poison his mom together.
Dear Lord.
And the mom's obviously becomes really upset because she's like, well, did you mix up my medication? And the kid's like, no. Daniel did that, not me. Daniel mixed up the medication. She's like, Daniel's got to go. We got to lock Daniel up in your grandmother's dollhouse. Get Daniel into your grandmother's dollhouse and don't let him come back out. And he goes to Daniel. He's like, Daniel, you got to get in. Get in. And Daniel's got his ears covered. I'm not getting in there. Daniel, get in. Daniel gets in. They lock the dollhouse, and we see the point of view of Daniel inside the dollhouse, and it's like a dungeon in there. And he's beating his fists against the inside of the dollhouse. Time jump. Luke is now an adult or on the verge of adulthood, going into college. He's played by Tim Robbins' son, who was in Halloween, the reboot. He was the kid who gets pinned up against the wall. He loses his virginity, gets pinned up against the wall. So he's playing adult Luke. And he's hearing banging. He can hear the banging from the dollhouse. Dollhouse wants out. Dollhouse does open eventually, and Daniel comes out. Daniel's played by Patrick Schwarzenegger, Arnold Schwarzenegger's son. He's like the most handsome dude on the planet.
Oh.
And that's the beginning. That's like the first 10, 15 minutes of the movie, called Daniel Isn't Real. And it is great. It is disturbing. It is weird. It is visually magnificent. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous movie. Highly, highly, highly recommend you put that on your radar. Daniel Isn't Real by Adam Egypt Mortimer. all of those conversations that we had in the Overlook Film Festival, I'm doing write-ups on Film School Rejects. So you can go to Film School Rejects and read those. Like the interview with Mick Garris is up already. But we're going to put those out as ItMod Chatcasts. So listeners, if you're not subscribed to the ItMod Chatcast channel feed,
doing?
what are you doing?
Get your life together.
Get your life together. All of those chats are going to be there. Billy's also writing up a couple of the interviews as well for Film School Rejects.
Yeah.
I think they're all really interesting chats that go into all manner of places. Mick Garris tells my dad to fuck off because of his opinion about Critters 2. So you got that to look forward to.
All right.
Yeah, it's pretty good. They have pretty good chats. The other cool thing about the Overlook Film Festival is it's not just movies. They have podcasts that they do stage shows of, like live recordings. I saw Paul Scheer and Amy Nicholson do a live recording of Unspooled.
Yeah.
They were talking about horror films that belong in the AFI Top 100 and are not. So they each picked a movie that they wanted to champion.
What did Paul pick?
Paul picked Scream, Wes Craven's Scream.
Okay.
Amy Nicholson picked Night of the Living Dead. And then they had two guests on. They had Sam Zimmerman, who runs Shudder, and they had Phil Nobile Jr., who's the editor-in-chief of Fangoria magazine. Phil picked Get Out, and Sam picked... Oh, I'm blanking on it. What did Sam pick? I can't remember. But that episode of Unspooled is on their network right now, so you can head on over to iTunes and listen to the episode.
Okay.
I thought it was a really interesting conversation. Grady Hendrix, author of Paperbacks from Hell, did a presentation of his book, and the way he does it is like it's not a live reading; it's a performance where he's talking about YA horror fiction and the both the joys and the horrors of YA publishing pre-Harry Potter. So it goes all the way back to, juvenile delinquent fiction that Harlan Ellison was writing back in the 50s, takes you to like The Outsiders and Rumblefish from S.E. Hinton, and then goes into Christopher Pike and R.L. Stine and how insane the stories were. And he talks about how before Harry Potter, YA was free of adult eyes. Like there was very little supervision going on with YA horror. And so some of those stories are absolutely insane. And he presented these tales of Christopher Pike in the historic decommissioned Catholic Church, the Peter and Paul Catholic Church. And, so that church is where they filmed the 21 Jump Street, the new one.
Oh.
Like the squad room when it was they built their undercover squad inside the church.
Oh, yeah.
In the first one, not the second one. And so you're sitting there in that set listening to Grady Hendrix pretend to be Christopher Pike, hearing the word of God delivering the plots of Christopher Pike novels to him, and then God being scared by how Christopher Pike interprets those story ideas.
Make that a musical and it sounds perfect.
It was a total blast. We talked to Grady Hendrix also about that whole experience. That'll be a podcast episode as well. Yeah. And then I saw, Elijah Wood's new podcast with Daniel Noah, Visitations. They did a recording there too.
Yeah.
So they've got all that stuff going on. They had like a VR immersion thing they were doing. The closing night party was a burlesque show. So I went to the burlesque show and they had a guy, in drag, Daisy confused, pretending to be Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs, doing burlesque.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
What was the song? What was the music?
I don't know. It's a song.
Was it a live band?
Brad showed me a video of a girl doing the dance from, being the girl from The Ring and then doing a burlesque dance with a wig and the whole thing.
What's that character's name? Samara?
Yeah.
Samara. So they wheeled out a well into the center of the stage.
That's dope.
Like it looked like a kiddie pool. Yeah. But I mean, better than a kiddie pool. It was like spongy.
What it was a garbage bin. It was like a garbage bin done up like a well.
Okay.
And they wheeled that out, and then they started to play like this,
Marilyn Manson.
Well, they did white noise.
Oh, white noise.
And for like
first.
the longest time, it's just like, and you're just staring at this well, like, okay, come out of there. We know you're in there. And then after about a minute, finally, Marilyn Manson's Beautiful People kicks off, and then you see like a hand come out, and then you see a leg come out.
Jesus.
This lady was talented.
Yeah, very contorted. And yeah, you never see her face because she's just got her hair. And then she slowly starts taking clothing off, you know? And then there was another woman who did, again, I don't know what the song was, but she was a zombie. And when she stripped her clothes off, she also stripped off pieces of her flesh.
Fun.
So she had like latex up on her legs and you know, back and all that stuff, and she would just like whip the flesh into the audience.
That's so fun.
As she was doing the burlesque. So if you haven't gone to the Overlook Film Festival, I'd highly recommend it. It was a total blast. And not to mention, you're in New Orleans, so you're surrounded by the best food on the planet. I ate so much good food, not just that barbecue shrimp and grits.
Jesus.
I had shrimp po' boys. I had an alligator sausage po' boy. It was delicious, Lisa. Crab cakes. The last day for breakfast, we went to Ruby Slippers Cafe, which was constructed right after Katrina, and they wanted a place where everybody could go to heal. And that's like the story that they've told about Ruby Slippers. It's called Ruby Slippers because we want to feel like we're going back home, you know. And they built this place, and it's flourished, and the food is next level good. So for breakfast, I had what they call the trifecta. You throw a fancy name on it, you say it's a beast feast, and it costs $20 for one meal. I was like, I'll take that. I'll take the trifecta. And what it is it's 3 massive buttermilk biscuits, and then a poached egg on all 3 of them, like a form of hollandaise sauce on top of it. And then on the one on the left, it's covered in shrimp and bacon. The middle one was braised pork. And then the third one on the right was fried chicken. Oh my God. And it was insanely good. And I ate every morsel of it.
I was going to ask you.
You can check my Instagram. You can see the before and after. And then after, that plate is licked. So yeah, New Orleans, some good food. Good food. Good food.
Word on the street is that there's a cool rapper guy getting married in New Orleans, so I'm looking forward to that.
Physics is having his wedding there next year.
That's right.
Now all the fans are gonna crash it.
Oh yeah, you know, well,
Gonna be some good eats.
Don't you crash Gabby's wedding?
Oh, and then I
be
did
pissed.
do Bourbon Street one night, a
How was
Sunday
that?
night. We went into bars. Alcohol got drunk. I ordered from the Prohibition bar something called a fishbowl, where they take a literal fishbowl.
Oh.
And then they fill it with pink liquid. And I was like, what's in the pink liquid? They're like, it's the fishbowl.
Oh.
Yeah, but what is it? Here you go. It's $12. All right, here you go. And I just wandered around Bourbon Street all night drinking from a fishbowl, and I got smashed. I wish I could say that I finished it like I did the trifecta.
No.
I got about halfway through, and then I just dumped it into the Mississippi.
I bet you killed some fish with that.
I bet you did. What was funny, though, is, you know, we're wandering around Bourbon Street, and because it's a fishbowl, there's no handle. So I was holding it from the top, and it kept, like, splashing onto my palm, and it was hot as hell in New Orleans. So I kept rubbing my hand through my hair, and by the end of the night, like, I got back to the Airbnb, and it was like my hair was cotton candy. It's so gross. I've never wanted a shower so bad in my life. But I was so drunk I didn't have one that night. I fell asleep on my bed in my clothes, and then I woke up and I rolled into the shower.
All right.
Nasty.
New Orleans, Overlook Film Festival.
All right.
Go there.
How was your weekend, Dork Darren?
My weekend dork was okay. I of course saw Dark Phoenix. I saw Ma. Did a rewatch of Hereditary with my girl. That was an amazing experience. Brian and I actually caught a screening of a Korean film, The Gangster, The Cop, The Devil, at the Cinemark at Arundel Mills.
How was that?
It was pretty cool. It wasn't great, but it was fun. It's based on a true story. There was a serial killer in South Korea, and I want to say this was like 95. Is it 95 or 2005?
Does this star the guy from Train to Busan?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
That guy from Train to Busan, the character's name is Jang, and the actor's name is Dong Seok Ma. he plays this South Korean gangster, like this mob boss. And around the time of his him being a mob boss, there was a serial killer in South Korea who was committing murder via these brutal knife killings. And so his MO would be he would rear end you. You would get out of your car. Both would get out the car. And while you're surveying the damage, he would knife you, right?
Rude.
And so there's a cop, and played by Moo Yo Kim, and he's like the rogue cop, you know, kind of play by his own rules, but still he's, you know, not a full-fledged maverick. But he's very much interested in finding this particular killer. But he's met resistance because there are people within his department that are corrupt. They're actually in the pockets of Jang, the guy from Train to Busan. So what happens is Jang ends up one night getting rear-ended by the serial killer, and the serial killer makes an attempt on his life, but Jang gets away and the serial killer gets away. And so now, you know, obviously this mob boss, Jang's introduction, just to establish the type of mob boss he is and how extreme he can be. So the introduction of him, he's in the gym working on the heavy bag, boom, 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 and one of his men come in and say, you know, hey, there's somebody here to meet you. So he stops hitting the heavy bag and he takes his glove off and he says, all right, take him down. So the guy takes the heavy bag down and unzips it, and there was some poor schmuck inside the heavy bag, like beat to a pulp. Yeah. So so Jang is a really bad dude.
It's like the Snatch golf sequence.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's it, and that's that character's introduction. So it really sets the tone of this particular guy, right? He smacks a guy to death. Like open hand.
That is a horrible way to go.
Like, yeah.
Ouch.
And so anyway, so he gets rear-ended. The killer is not able to complete the job. So now this particular guy is like, all right, I want all my men to go find this guy. You're not gonna stab me up and put me in the hospital and get away with it. The cop is going to his superiors and saying, hey, I found some clues. There's this other case that I think all of them are linked to the same guy. You need to let me go take some guys and go catch this killer before he kills someone else. I think it's the same person. He's told by his lieutenant, just forget it. We're going to put special investigations on it. They'll take care of it. So ultimately what happens is, in the crux of the movie, and it's in the trailer, the cop says, all right, screw the department. I'm going to go question Jang, the boss leader, to find out what he knows. Jang ends up propositioning him, hey, look, you want this guy, I want this guy. I'm going to do what I have to do to catch him. So you can either help me and we can work together to catch the guy, or you can just clean up the bodies as I make my way to this guy. So ultimately the cop and the bad guy end up teaming up. It's like a very, shaky alliance, if you want to call it that, to both catch this serial killer. And I don't know, like Brian and I were talking after the film, and it plays out up until the third act to a certain point how you would think. Firstly they're at odds, then they see the benefit of actually working together, and then one gets the drop, and instead of, because the deal is, all right, whoever gets him first gets to, if the cop catches him first, all right, I'm gonna book him and follow the letter of the law. If the gangster gets him first, his ass is getting chopped up and mailed to different parts of the country or whatever. But to each of their own group and their company, all right, we're gonna bust this guy. I'm gonna book him, and then I'm taking Jang down. I'm gonna arrest him. And then Jang is like, all right, well, we're gonna catch this guy. I'm gonna kill him, and then we're gonna get rid of the cops too. So they each have like their ulterior motives, but like. So it eventually comes to a head when they catch the guy. You think it's going to play out. Either the cop's going to catch him and then book him, or the gangster's going to catch him and then kill the cop, or they're going to catch him and then decide, you know what, we're not going to kill each other. We have a mutual respect, and it's going to play out from there. And it kind of does, but it doesn't. But the way it ends and what they end up doing with the killer, I found really refreshing. I thought it was really cool. So yeah, Brian and I used to go out to like these midnight screenings, and we used to go out a lot, like to the movies and stuff like that. I haven't been out with him in a while, but it was really cool to go to catch up with him and see this film. Arundel Mills plays a lot of foreign cinema, more than Korean film. They play a lot of like Indian films and Bollywood films, and it was weird because like all the previews for this movie, I would say 90% of that audience were Korean, and which is really cool. Like, they get to go and actually see like, some of their films and actors that they're familiar with and filmmakers they're familiar with on the big screen. But like all the previews were like for Indian films, and I'm leaning over to Brian. I'm like, there's got to be some Korean films coming out this year. I know the people in the audience like, what the fuck? So, but it was really cool. But the movie I want to talk about real quick is a film that I caught the Deadwood. You said you saw the Deadwood.
Yeah,
What'd you think? What'd you think about that?
I was talking to Lisa Bell Roden about this before we went and saw Godzilla.
We should add her to our drinking game. Every time we mention her, take a drink.
I loved it. Because I love being in Deadwood with those characters.
Yeah.
And I love the dialogue and what have you. Is it everything you want 14 years later, 13 years later? No.
Yeah.
Does it have issues? No. Is it basically a replay of the last episode of third season Deadwood? Kinda. But I mean, I would say I loved it. I loved it because I love those people.
Yeah.
And it was a nice end for at least one particular character. And I love Timothy Olyphant as this Marshall Bullock.
Yeah.
And I liked where all their relationships were at the beginning of this, like where it had gone 10 years later for the main characters anyway.
Yeah.
Some of like why certain characters were at certain places 10 years later didn't quite make sense for a lot of the side characters, but for the main characters, it really worked for me. For Saul, for Trixie, for Al, and for Seth Bullock.
Yeah.
It worked. I don't know. What about you?
Firstly, I had forgotten about how like the dialogue in this show.
It's like watching Shakespeare.
You
have to like concentrate.
Yeah, but you know what? I love and respect it so much. Like it took a minute. It took a minute for me to get back into it. But even before I had gotten fully back into it, I just was amazed and in awe at just the writing and just how they thought to do this particular show in this style, and how it's not something to get a lot, right?
No, there's nothing quite like it.
Mm. And but once I got past that, seeing Calamity Jane again, and
I loved her story with Joni Stubbs.
Right?
Really worked for me.
Yeah. The stuff with Trixie and Saul and Sheriff Bullock, like all that, and Swearingen, like he's always been my favorite character of the show, and just to see, like, thinking all the way back to the beginning when you first meet that guy and the shit that he does in the first 3 seasons or whatever. But then ultimately, how his character is handled in the final this movie, I don't know. I felt like it was done perfectly. Like, I don't know, and I know it's not fair to compare this to another certain series finale.
Don't do it.
But I just will say that this is, I found it infinitely more satisfying.
Agreed.
Infinitely more satisfying, from that feeling of, like you said, being back in Deadwood, and for me, I hadn't gone back. I wanted to start rewatching that series.
I wasn't able to,
but I didn't. Yeah. But for me, I'm kind of glad I didn't, because I felt the time, I felt the distance, and it made revisiting them and being reintroduced.
I rewatched the last episode of Deadwood before watching it, and that might have been a mistake, just because of what I was saying, how it just sort of feels like it's
or like a rehash.
Not rehashing, but it's still stuck on the same idea of the last episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, to me, watching the Deadwood movie makes me go, well, I got to rewatch the whole thing. I really want to fall back in and watch all of it again. And I have restarted the first season.
Yeah. Is it still as good as I remember?
It's so damn good.
Right.
It's so good. It's still my favorite show of all time.
Yeah.
I need Brad to really notate in detail where the shocking and horrible vomit scenes are.
It's not VF. That is
Super
true.
not.
It's mostly with Calamity Jane, right?
Yeah, Calamity Jane is a horror. I think that there's like one V scene that ended it for me where I think that someone was just puking on set and they were like, let's get this on camera. This is what the Wild West is really like.
But I think, that's what I'm going to do is I want to like document that for Lisa because I really want Lisa to
watch
finish
it
the third season.
Because it's just like now, like I started watching the finale, the movie, and I couldn't get through it.
Movies VF, Lisa. There's no vomit in the movie.
That's good.
But what was I going to say? What was I going to say?
I'm sorry.
Oh God. The other thing about the Deadwood movie and Al's story, I'm not going to spoil what happens to Al, but David Milch, the creator and the writer of the movie and many of the episodes, is in the midst of succumbing to Alzheimer's.
Oh, shit.
And this is probably his last creative work. And how he tells that experience through Al in this episode, to use everyone's favorite word, elevates it than just a normal season finale for me. And so
I didn't know that.
I didn't know it either until I was reading articles reviews of Deadwood.
So once I get through the rewatch of the series and then finishing up with the movie, like with that in mind, I'll pay more attention to Al.
And that's the thing is like, Lisa Bell Roden asked me, or maybe actually you did. No, Lisa Gullickson
Don't mix up
me.
your Lisas.
I try not to.
Especially in your marriage.
Lisa Gullickson asked me if I treat this as canon? Will I always finish Deadwood with this movie? And because I know Lisa has some issues with the final season of Gilmore Girls. For me, this is the end. Like it feels like the end.
Yeah, it does to me too. That I want to talk about that. But Netflix had a movie released recently, I Am Mother. Did you see that?
Yeah, I watched it.
So I watched that, and I wasn't expecting much from this. I caught a trailer for it a while ago, and I forgot about it. And it was I turned Netflix on for something to watch, and it was available. It premiered June 7th, I want to say.
Yep.
And it is about let me go to IMDb. A teenage girl is raised underground by a kindly robot named designated mother to repopulate Earth following the extinction of humankind. But their unique bond is threatened when an inexplicable stranger arrives with alarming news. It's directed by a guy named Grant Sputori.
Yeah.
And it stars Luke Hawker, Maddie Linton, Summer Linton, and Hilary Swank. I enjoyed the film. It's one of those. I don't know. I kind of have seen this movie before.
Yes.
But with having said that, I feel like I really enjoyed like the production design of the location, the set, the performance by and the robot mother is voiced by Rose Byrne.
Yeah.
And Practical, which I don't know. Like I have mixed feelings about that.
You didn't like it? I loved the robot.
I did. I liked it. I can't say that I loved it.
Really?
I have. It's the robot reminds me a lot of the robot from the Lost in Space Netflix series, which was a practical robot like this one
I never
with a person.
It, but yeah.
But what was that robot's name?
Robbie is the I can't remember.
But that robot in the show, while I can appreciate practical effects, like it wasn't. The budget for that was not nearly as much as the robot for I Am Mother. This one was like leaps and bounds better.
It's a Weta robot.
It is. And Weta's design, again, to go into the production of the film, like Weta's design, to see their name at the end credits, I was like, okay, that makes sense because everything as far as like the science fiction and the machinery and the other. Not just Mother, the design of the Mother robot, but there are some other things in the end of the film, or in the third act, I don't want to spoil, that I found really, really cool from a visual standpoint. It's one of those movies. It's kind of like most recently maybe 10 Cloverfield Lane, where you have some people in a singular location and someone is told don't go out there because you'll die or something bad is waiting out there, and then there's drama within this location and the person goes out and finds out that it was all a lie. And is the person that's telling you don't go outside, are they telling you the truth? Can you trust this person? So it was kind of like that as the main conceit of the story. But I don't know, like I found, like, I guess the science fiction element and why mother is keeping the child in, and ultimately what her aim is. I don't know. I guess I kind of found that interesting. And at the very least, like when the third act comes, when the story opens up a little bit more, and what's at the very least hinted at, because it doesn't really go into too much detail. It's kind of, to me, I felt like it was still kind of ambiguous as to what exactly happened on the outside. But from a visual standpoint, I felt like, I don't know, there were some very interesting things going on that, I don't know, maybe I would have liked if it was elaborated on a little bit more. But I don't know, I felt like performance-wise, like Hilary Swank was great. The young lady who plays at this point, I guess she's a teenager. I thought she was good in it. And so the robot is voiced by Rose Byrne, but it's played by a separate actor in the suit, and I thought they did a really good job.
I loved the movie. I think I liked it a little bit more than you did. I loved the robot. I loved Rose Byrne's vocal performance. I agree that it's certainly of a type, and you've seen this type of story before, and the twists and turns that it takes, you kind of see coming. But as far as the execution of this sort of typical material, I thought it was exceptional. I loved it. I actually got to interview the director for Film School Rejects. Had an interesting conversation with him about the practicalities of making that movie. They had very little money to accomplish it, and it's pretty damn impressive.
I think it's one of, as far as Netflix's films, their recent output, I think it's one of their best looking films. Like budget wise, it seemed like they had a decent budget, because I didn't find any like shortcomings with that. I don't know. I thought it looked great. And I have a question. So what do you think? What happened at the end in that context?
Well, I don't want to spoil it for listeners. I don't want to spoil it for listeners. So if you're gonna watch I Am Mother, go watch I Am Mother.
Yeah.
And if you're not, skip ahead 30 seconds.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. They're the same person. The teenager and Hilary Swank are the same person. They're not the same person, but they're the same DNA. This has been a secular thing that has been going on. Mother has raised other versions of this person, and she has released them. Yeah.
Wait. Oh shit. So the people in the mines, they really existed? Like, she really spent time with people in the mines?
I mean, I'm sure, I assume that there have been survivors and she's had interactions with survivors, but those are the same. That's the same DNA.
Oh, shit.
I can't think your 30 seconds is up.
Yeah.
Okay.
But now I feel spoiled.
Sorry.
Shit, now I got to go back and rewatch it. Wow. Okay.
And I thought it was going to be Chappie too.
Yeah. Skip ahead another 15 seconds. And then Mother's, at the end, she's like, look, I let you go, and this is what you did, and now I'm going to break your neck.
So to give the other girl a
start?
start?
She's like, let's see how she does.
Oh, okay. That's what I want to know. Yeah. Like, if did that happen when she closed the door? But who that was? Okay, I didn't even think about that. Oh shit. All right. Yeah, definitely check it out though. It's worth watching. Shit, it's worth rewatching now that I know that. So that's gonna do it for my Weekend Dork. When we come back from the break, we will do our review cast for Dark Phoenix.
It'll be brief.
Well, no, we got to do like 2 hours, 3 hours. How long are we at right now, Darren?
2 hours, so we only have 30 seconds to talk about it. Sorry. But no, when we come back, we'll do a review cast proper of the final film in Fox's stab at the X-Men property, Dark Phoenix. So yeah, we right back after the break.
Hey, this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. This week's review cast is for Dark Phoenix. This is the final film in the X-Men franchise that started way back. It was at 2000 and what?
I think it's 2000.
It's 2000.
19 years ago.
And a mediocre franchise whimpers to the finish line.
Oh.
Technically, isn't New Mutants still coming?
Is it?
I don't know.
It's not canon.
Also, yeah, is that...
I mean, it's an X-Men spin-off, maybe? I mean, the New Mutants were X-Men. I mean, they were mutants.
I'd be curious to see. I don't know. I'm kind of curious to see what that movie is and why it has been pushed back so many times. But also more.
You just watched Dark Phoenix?
I did, but you know what? I don't know. I just want to see how it ties into, if it's a part. I just want to know if it's canon and see how they tie it into it.
I doubt they tie it in.
Yeah, I doubt it gets released. Anyway, we're here to talk about Dark Phoenix. We're gonna do our good, the bad, the ugly. So starting with you, Lisa.
Yes, for my good,
Yes.
I'm going to shout out. I don't know why did I use that phrase. I'm gonna shout out certain cast members where I can still enjoy their performance.
Mm-hmm.
I like James McAvoy
Yeah.
as Professor Charles Xavier. I'm not necessarily loving every turn of his character, but I think I like him as an actor. I think he's a fine Professor X. Michael Fassbender, I would watch him just butter toast.
He's
really
great.
slowly.
I'd rather watch him butter toast.
But like he didn't have very much to do as Magneto in this film. But I just like looking at him.
Instantly charismatic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And I think that he does carry the his backstory with him
Well, they won't let it go.
because they won't let it go. Yeah. I am really enjoying Alexandra Shipp as Storm.
Oh yeah.
I loved Tragedy Girls.
Yep.
I thought that movie was great. I think I loved that chat cast we did with the director of that film. But I just think that she is just so dynamic on screen. She's funny. She's a great actress. I think she looks great in the role. I think she's awesome.
She didn't do anything in this movie.
She didn't do anything in this movie, but I looked at her face and I go, that is nice.
Yeah.
I want to mush it. She's so cute. I want to bite
She
her.
calls Scott Summers out on his BS. Like that's
true.
As he
that
deserves.
happens.
Um,
Ty Sheridan.
Is that it?
Is that it?
Jesus.
Yeah.
What about J-Law? You love J-Law.
She might come up in one of my later categories.
All right.
Oh man.
That's my good.
Oh, okay.
All right, Brad.
Yeah.
It's on you.
There is one scene in this movie that I generally really, really enjoyed. And when the film opens up, there's young Jean Grey, and we learn how she killed her parents this time around. She's like changing the radio stations. Parents are like, don't change the radio stations. How dare you? She's like, I want to listen to American Werewolf in London. Warren Zevon's the best. And they're like, no, you shut up. And then she causes the mom to like, I guess she kills the mom in that moment. And then the car drives off into the other truck. I'm not exactly sure because when they flash back, it seems like she shuts the mom's brain off and that's how the car accident happened. And then you see the car like topple and crash, and she's created this psychic barrier to keep all the glass from hitting her face. I kind of like that psychic barrier.
Yeah.
That reacts.
And that psychic barrier comes back later.
Right, when she's like,
in a
no, I'm
satisfying
going to
way.
now protect my family. And when she... I don't want to talk about the train sequence. We'll talk about the train sequence later. But
Okay.
she creates the barrier around all her family members, all the mutants. But after all that, when Professor X comes to collect her, and he brings her to his school, That conversation that he has with young Jean Grey, I think really works. Where he's talking to her about the pen. He's like, here's a pen. It's a gift. It's a gift? Yeah, it's a gift. And like any gift, you can use it to do many things. You can use that pen to write a sonnet. You can draw a really pretty picture, or you can take it and jam it into my eye. And then as a metaphor for mutants and for also humanity in general, that we all have a pen that we can either write a sonnet or we can poke it in each other's eye. I love that as a metaphor for the mutants.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that conversation I really, really liked. And then the movie continued.
I thought of another thing I liked.
I was going to move on to the bad, but yeah, no, I was going to move on to Darren's good because I'm sure he's got a lot. But yes,
Well,
what's your other good thing?
Dazzler.
Yay.
I did not realize how much Lisa liked Dazzler until Dazzler appeared for 1 second in this movie at a party.
Would I not like Dazzler? I'm a singer. And the fact that she was like, it's just like, yeah, you're a mutant. And they like in comics, in Dark Phoenix, they bring Dazzler along on like missions and stuff. But like she sings really good and she sparkles. So
she makes a light show.
She's literally like just a distraction. But I like the I like the idea of my superpower is really entertaining.
Yeah. Lisa lit up.
Lisa
lit up.
It's my friend. Plus, I like the every iteration of Dazzler. I always love what she's wearing.
Yeah. Okay.
Dan, so that you're going to continue with your good.
I mean, I agree. Michael Fassbender, I like him as an actor.
Yeah. And then
there was no end credits. There, like no post credit tag.
That's right.
Therefore, no promise of any more of these horrible, atrocious X-Men movies.
That's your good.
That's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
All right,
that's good. It's over, guys. It's over. We're done. I found something, Darren. Lisa found something.
I like Michael Fassbender. He's a great actor.
That was my good. You can't be stealing my goods.
Hold on.
Hold the door.
So wait, that's a different movie. Hold on.
Sophie Turner. She's from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it was good to see Sophie Turner play someone other than Sansa Stark, and she's a good actress. She's a good actor. She wasn't given much to work with, but I
What about Jessica Chastain? We like Jessica Chastain
in other films. Yes, I like her in other films. All right, Lisa, the bad.
We've mentioned J-Law a little earlier.
Yeah.
You can just the disdain for the entire franchise was just radiating off of her the entire time. In that first scene where she's talking, like she's trying to, get through to Charles Xavier about like the damage the school is doing. I turn to Brad and I do the thing where you kind of do the hang loose, but you hold it to your ear, like
ring.
Is phoning it in, super phoning it in, and it is depressing. Plus, I don't like the fact that she doesn't want to be blue. Like the whole idea of Mystique is that she is her true self, and she should and when she is her true self. I thought
about that when they were in the school. Like, why would she not promote that in the school?
Yeah, it goes against
Jennifer Lawrence is just like, I'm a star. People want to see my flippin' face.
Nicholas Hoult, same exact thing.
Yeah.
Like this whole werewolf beast thing that they've created just for these movies.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So lame.
What about poor Cody Smith-McPhee? He accepts the blue.
Ty Sheridan is like a black hole on screen. Like you just look at him and he just sucks the life out of every scene. Such a snooze.
Damn.
What else? I just found it just really boring. I hate to say that because boredom is lack of imagination, but I really don't feel like it's my lack of imagination in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right,
okay.
Brad.
Okay. I mean, the script's terrible.
Yeah.
That opening scene, like, I can't tell if I'm projecting how awful, like my opinion of what J-Law must be thinking because, she's phoning it in, or if it's just that really atrocious script that she has that she's forced to read by, you know, contractual law, where she.
But we see other actors turn it into something. You know, like James McAvoy can turn it into something.
Can you turn her dialogue into something in that scene? That whole conversation is about how, Charles, this is your fault. You lied to the students, and you know, you're the reason that everything bad is happening because you helped this child and you didn't tell her about her parent that is actually still alive and hateful and doesn't want anything to do with her. And then, you know, that somehow leads to Mystique's death, and then Hank's all mad at Charles Xavier because he blames Charles Xavier for Mystique dying.
And there was some kind of like sexual tension between Mystique
and Nicholas Hoult and Magneto. Yeah. They had a relationship.
And what movie was that shit in?
I think Apocalypse. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I thought of another good.
Oh,
the Quentin Choir at the end.
There's a cameo Quentin Choir. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like a cameo, Lisa.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I just think the script is garbage. You know, not that you have to do a direct adaptation of a comic book that's, you know, well known. You know, the Dark Phoenix Saga is one of the most well known comic books of all time. You know, The Winter Soldier is a great comic book. The Winter Soldier movie that we got in the MCU is not the comic book. It has almost nothing to do with the comic book. Age of Ultron has zero to do with the comic book of that name. So it's not like we need the comic book to be adapted. But because the X-Men has tried once already with the Dark Phoenix storyline in The Last Stand, mucked it all about, and now they want to do it again. And this time they have the space NASA mission, and the cosmic entity is a cosmic entity, but they don't do any explanation of what this thing is that has inhabited Jean. It's a parasite. It's all powerful. Okay, these other aliens.
Felt like the aliens' god. It was their god.
Like, well, it was the god that destroyed them. You know, the Dabari, their planet was destroyed by the Phoenix, and now they want to control the Phoenix. Except it's not even called the Phoenix. The only person called the Phoenix in this movie is Jean Grey, who's dubbed that by the students. So this thing is just a force, and it's powerful and it's destructive, and it has killed everything it has come in contact with, except for Jean Grey, and now
Except for Jessica Chastain.
Yeah, who siphons off a little bit of it, but then still wants more of it by the end. Like, what is happening in that train sequence? Didn't she get the Phoenix before, or some of it?
I don't know.
It's bizarre. I thought of another bad. The lack of diversity in the kids at the school. Like, you know, the X gene presents itself in a myriad of ways, and we see it in Mystique, and we see it in Beast, and we see it in
Storm and Cyclops.
Yeah,
and
Cody Smith McPhee.
Yeah, Nightcrawler.
Yeah, Nightcrawler. But then when we saw the kids, they were all just ordinary looking kids of average size and height. You know? So it's just kind of generic. Like, I don't know. I thought that they could mix it up.
Somebody had glowing veins.
Yeah, for a second.
Where's Glob? Where is Glob?
I'm hard pressed to find a character in any sci-fi movie that doesn't have glowing veins. Everybody's veins are glowing as of late.
It's just the movie's garbage. I mean, the movie is garbage.
What about you? What was your bad, Darren? Did you finish your bad? I'm so sorry.
I ended on garbage.
My bad is the film. I don't have the energy nor the interest in running down everything I thought was bad with the film. I've said it before on the podcast. I've never been a fan of this franchise, specifically because of Fox's aversion to embracing the comic book nature and roots of the film.
Franchise. They seem so apathetic to what they have built before, and yet they're trying to tell me that this is a sequel to Apocalypse, which is a sequel to Days of Future Past, which is a sequel to First Class. If you say so.
I don't understand why. I don't understand why Magneto, like Fassbender's Magneto, feels the way he does about Raven's death. because their relationship isn't that emotionality that he has when he, upon hearing of her death, that's not predicated on any of what was shown in the films between Fassbender and Jennifer Lawrence. It was no, in Rebecca Romaine Stamos and Ian McKellen's Magneto, at least cinematically, their relationship was shown on screen to be very close. But in the films with Fassbender and Jennifer Lawrence, I don't remember them ever
I definitely
showing.
don't remember anything. I feel like there was something there in Days of Future Past, but I really don't.
She was one of those where she was on both teams.
Yeah, because she left at the end of First Class to join Magneto's team. But I don't remember them really doing like any lovey-dovey stuff.
I don't think lovey-dovey stuff, but I think that kind of like how Professor X has, even though they're peers, has this kind of paternal relationship.
Yeah.
I think Magneto feels the same thing. I don't think that it's supposed to be like, oh, he was in love with her. I think it's more like he had this really paternal feeling towards her because
I think that is all stuff that we are putting on the movie.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm really good at watching movies.
I don't think that's anything that you see
I'm
in this
making
film.
my own fun.
You're just being told stuff in this movie.
Yeah.
Like this is happening for this is happening, this is happening.
Well, okay, Lisa the Ugly.
Yeah, oh, okay. I think it's really interesting that the one performance that has not come up in this conversation was Sophie Turner's as Jean Grey.
We talked about how he loves Sophie Turner and he's happy to see Sophie Turner acting in things.
Yeah, but at the same
Wait,
time...
are you going to say her performance was ugly? No.
No, I'm not going to say her performance was ugly. I think they were unable to make the character of Jean Grey, who is the center of this film, interesting at all.
Yeah.
She was so bland. I think that the child Jean Grey has more compelling scenes than the adult Jean Grey.
She has one scene.
She has one scene, and it's a very moving scene too, because the one in the car and then the one at the school.
Yeah,
3.
Yeah, this is like Dark Phoenix is just plot. No understanding of what the plot is.
It felt like that while I was watching it, and even after the fact. I think it was yesterday or the day before. Post seeing the film, I read that article where I think it was Sophie Turner who said, maybe it was Simon Kinberg who said that they were rewriting that script every day as they were shooting it, and that makes so much sense because a lot of the things that happen in the film feels like it's happening because the script dictates it, so not necessarily because of motivations or something that happened narratively previously, like when she has the first episode when the Dazzler is singing, everyone's outside at that night and something happens and she has that energy flare and she passes out. Her reaction to that is, okay, I gotta leave. Instead of, granted, something crazy just happened to her. She wasn't sure what it was, but for me, it doesn't make sense for her to just, I gotta leave everyone, my family and everything I know because I don't want to hurt anyone. Instead of, hey, Professor, what the fuck is going on? Please help me. We have all this technology. We have this master blue scientist who can look at me and hook me up to this machine. Find out what the fuck just happened because I'm freaking out. She just wants to leave and run away, but that's because the script dictates that she separate herself so that Jessica Chastain's alien can find her vulnerable and say, okay, they don't want you. They don't see you as what you could truly be. So let me guide you and help you. Like, I don't know, like there's a bunch of inconsistencies in character motivations I felt like in the script. And again, it feels like it's just plot, but those plots aren't even cohesive. It just feels like, well, today let's write it, let's change it and do it this way. Instead of, well, what did this character do the last time? What did this character do in the previous one? What did we establish as far as motivations between relationships between this person and that person? Like Charles Xavier's turn in this film, as far as Brian mentioned that he felt like this film was kind of doing something interesting and setting him up to be not the bad guy, but a bad guy, right? And
or an antagonist.
An antagonist, right? Mm-hmm. And so the turn for Charles, either to me, it doesn't make sense or feel natural, or isn't explored enough to make it feel.
If I may do the emotional heavy lifting that this film should have done, and this is from the comic book, where she had more power than any other mutant he had seen. And so with the mistaken of idea or the self-delusion of, well, I need to protect her from herself, he created barriers in her mind.
Which he does in this.
Yeah, which he does in this, to block off the power. And in the film, she had the extra added thing of he was also, without her permission, blocking out trauma. So when the Phoenix started breaking these barriers down, that trauma washed back over her, and she was under the impression that both of her parents were dead.
Right.
But in fact, her father was still alive. And so it's that betrayal that she can't go back. She chooses not to go to Charles Xavier. She chooses to go to Magneto. But, like, to me, my retelling of what happened in the story had more passion than anything that happened on that screen.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, I just, and like with them writing Charles and, you know, him, when Raven says, you know, I hope you aren't just doing this because of your ego. You like getting a call from the president and all that. Like, okay, if you're going to make that, this is where Charles is now, like, where did that shit come from? Like, if that was something that had been touched upon in previous films, there would have been, for me, it would have felt organic that, okay, it's gotten to this point now. Like, we had seen signs of it before. There was little seeds placed here and there before, and now this is the result of, you know, all these years and whatever there was establishing before. And now Charles has gotten to this point where he's just blinded by his hubris.
Well, they show in the beginning of the movie how humanity now loves mutants. Like, they're celebrities now. They just rescued the NASA mission. We've put Blueface on ourselves, and we want to be like mutants.
Yeah.
And, like, it's such a far removal from where humanity saw mutants. But then, like, the moment Jean Grey loses her stuff in that suburban neighborhood and throws a couple cop cars around and kills Mystique.
And cops.
Does she kill the cops?
Yeah.
Okay, she kills the cops. All right. And then it's like, okay, guess what? We do hate mutants again, you know.
Yeah. So, did you talk about the train sequence? Do you want to talk about the train sequence?
That's ugly for me is just how atrocious that train sequence is, where the way that goes is Magneto and Hank want to kill Jean for what they did to Mystique. So we're going to New York to go take her down.
Yeah.
And Cyclops, Storm, and Professor X and Nightcrawler are going to go help and save Mystique. They believe that, not Mystique, they believe they're going to save Jean Grey from herself, that they can still teach her to control her uncontrollable power. And, you know, they meet in New York. Jean Grey decimates Hank and Magneto's team fairly quickly. There's a couple other Brotherhood of Evil mutants along with them, including that guy who can whip his hair around. I was like, dude, you're no match for Storm. Why are you taking Storm down so easily? Why isn't she just electrocuting you?
Yeah.
But you've got some really cool hair.
I guess.
And Jean takes care of them. Then the MCU shows up, not the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but the Mutant Control Unit.
Yeah.
They show up and put collars on them, dampeners on them,
yeah,
and put them in the train, and they all go off together. They capture Jean because she's been siphoned by Jessica Chastain. And then Jessica Chastain's like, wait, no, I need some more of that Phoenix juice still.
Yeah.
So our whole army's going to show up, these shapeshifters who can't be killed by regular bullets, but 50 calibers can take them down.
Yeah.
Okay. Just more firepower. And then why does Jean frees herself? Because the one cop dies and he lets go of the normal mutants or the regular mutants, and they struggle to take on the sci-fi invasion. But then Jean frees herself.
So Charles has that. So Charles, they have the conversation in the mind.
Oh yeah,
and she ultimately she sees. I guess they come to an understanding of why Charles did what he did. He apologizes. And she forgives him, and she says, "Okay, I know what I must do now." So really, what I took from that is sort of like Captain Marvel, where she stopped holding herself back. You know, I guess that's what I took. And so when she says, I know what I must do now, because ultimately all she did was like open her eyes and then just she unlocked herself and became powerful, which means she had the ability to do that, because Charles didn't do anything to her. He didn't.
Right.
He didn't remove anything because the barriers were already broken.
She did it herself.
So she did it herself. So I guess
and
that's
she went
what happened.
full X3, where she starts obliterating people into molecules.
Oh yeah, I appreciated that.
Here's an ugly.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica Chastain and Jean Grey interlock. She's going to explode Jessica Chastain, but she can't do it on Earth. She's got to go up to space to do it. So she takes Jessica Chastain up into space to obliterate her. And Jessica Chastain's like, yo, I told you your emotions were going to get the better of you. Your emotions are your weakness. And she's like, no, emotions are my strength. And then she obliterates Jessica Chastain and then fully transforms into the Phoenix Force. What the hell? Where did that line come from?
Captain Marvel?
Yeah. Like, why is that line there?
And it doesn't make sense. Like, no, actually, sweetie, your strength is this alien entity that is still in your bod.
No, but you know what that is, though. You know what that line is, right?
Pandering?
He said. I'm just saying, like that.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
but I'm not against pandering. I love being pandered to, but you have to give it emotional.
You have to set that up. Like when that type of line is delivered in Captain Marvel, it pays off something that has started from the beginning of the movie.
Well,
this comes out of nowhere.
You don't feel like it's her having to suppress that power, or maybe
she's running away from her strength. She doesn't know whose side she's on.
That's not established.
Yeah, no.
Oh, I'm putting that onto the.
Yeah, that's right. It's all your fault. You guys.
I was trying to play devil's advocate.
In post, emotionally.
I've also seen people complain about the ex-women line that J-Law does, which is, I guess, also pandering, but that worked more for me than anything else.
What are your thoughts? I wanted to ask you that, Lisa. What are your thoughts about?
Yeah, you're a woman.
Particular line.
The line,
you should
the women are doing more.
You should call this the ex-women.
I like that was a nice acknowledgement of the sacrifices female characters have to make to motivate men, generally by dying. But I like that. I also think that it was important to point out, like, well, what does the X in X-Men stand for?
Yeah, it's you, dude.
It stands for Xavier. And, yeah. So, but Brad pointed this out at the end of the movie, and I think this could fall under ugly as well. Like, why is it called the Jean Grey School?
Yeah.
As
Screw
opposed
you,
to
Raven.
the Mystique School. Yeah.
Because that's what it is in the comic books. But, like, Mystique's been around longer.
She's been around longer.
I hope she gets like a gymnasium named after her or something.
Yeah.
How about that basketball court? This is the Mystique basketball court.
That splits open when the X-Jet comes out. Yeah. All right. Well. Yeah.
What happened to Quicksilver?
He was still alive
because
at the end.
and then he didn't pop back up again.
I guess he just stayed behind.
You can't take everybody every
well,
time.
that because I guess at some point you have to figure out, like, I don't know, but they're not even properly utilized. They don't even know what to do with Storm, let alone Quicksilver. Because for real, like, these characters are OP considered like who they're going up against. Like the hair guy, like Storm could have settled all that shit by herself outside of New York, really.
Yeah.
But because the movie or the writers don't know what to do with those characters, you sideline Quicksilver, because technically he could finish a whole bunch of shit with just him. He's so fast. Like he could have taken everybody on that train out.
The only person who's pretty helpless is Charles Xavier.
I mean, he can mind everybody. He can shut everybody down. We've seen him in movies.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
We've seen him do it in this movie where he's just like, and everybody pause.
Yeah, he could have did that.
Oh, man.
So I don't want to start thinking about, because it's going to make me dislike this movie even more.
I like Nightcrawler. I think that they use, like, he's not a dude of like limitless power, but they used him pretty well.
They did. I particularly like the train track trick. I was like, oh
yeah,
shit.
that was fun. Yeah. How would you not do that every day of the week?
I like how he impales that dude with his tail.
That was fun.
And then
I like when everybody was chained up. His tail got a little chain too. Chain that shit up. They came equipped, tail equipped.
Yeah, how? Because that thing was built into the wall behind him, so you have that on the off chance you have a Nightcrawler in custody.
This is for our tailed prisoners.
Either that, or you would just have to zip tie it to his ankle. I think that would be pretty effective, actually.
Yeah, and how did they know his tail would be that size? Like, what if his tail was
super stupid?
So okay, you know what? It's falling apart. All right,
it's falling apart.
I don't even have. Do I have ugly? I don't know. This franchise, this entire franchise, and you know, it's inevitable that any superhero film, regardless of the studio outside of Marvel Studios, is going to get compared to Marvel Studios, and that's because of the tremendous job that they've done translating all those different stories to the big screen. And I don't know, you get spoiled once you get a taste of what could be and what is now possible.
The X-Men films used to be the only comic book movies you could really see. You know, it was the only comic book franchise for a while, besides the Spider-Mans on and off.
And the Batman. But I don't know. I feel like I'm glad now that this run is over, and that, you know, yes, it could have potential negative impact with Disney buying up Fox and everything that falls under that particular umbrella and that business deal. But at the very least, with them reclaiming the rights to this property, hopefully in 4 years or 5 years down the line, we'll get Marvel's interpretation of these characters.
I need a break.
You know what? I think everyone does, and I think it'll do us some good. But you know, there's so many other characters with stories to mine from that in the meantime. But I just
think that the X-Men as characters are so important. The way their story has been told during the civil rights era, and then later with gay rights, I think that this representation of the strength of outsiders is so important. And the fact that the ball is constantly being fumbled on the big screen is heartbreaking.
I think what will benefit this break that we're going to take is, you know, even within the MCU, not just within film in general, but within the MCU, how Marvel is having this push now to have more representation behind the camera, with female voices, with people of color, and then also in front of the camera, how they're saying that we're on the precipice of having our first openly gay superhero. So I think with time and the advancement of this change in representation, with this paradigm shift, when it comes time for Marvel to take their stab at adapting the X-Men characters, we will be in a more progressive place, so that the person behind the camera, the people in front of the camera, the variety and difference in representation will fit with the X-Men characters, so we can have stories that truly capture the essence of what these characters are supposed to be.
I just don't want the cinematic universe to give up on the X-Men. I think there's a good story. It's like even more to a degree of the Fantastic Four, where it's just like the Fantastic Four story has been just like.
But see, I think I'm much happier if they announced next year we're getting a Fantastic Four movie. I'd be super stoked. If they said next year we're getting a Wolverine film, I'm like, I'm good.
We're good.
Yeah.
I mean, we're full up on Wolverine films.
No, I have every faith. You know, with again, because Kevin Feige, I just read a headline about him where he says that there is an issue with the name X-Men. Like, so this is Kevin Feige. This is the head of the Marvel Studios, the big brain behind all of these films, and his idea is it mirrors that particular scene. You know, it should be called X-Women. He feels like there's an issue with just the name of that team with where we are today, and that just comes from a growth in thought processes and viewpoints and seeing and wanting inclusiveness. So I think with someone at the head of that studio with that type of mindset, given rights to this particular property, and like you said, we need these stories. We need these characters now. They're so important. So if we have a studio who is willing to embrace a progressive thinking, and as far as representation with these characters, we got with Captain Marvel and having a female director, and having the most powerful character in the MCU be a female, and with the push for representation, like with characters like Valkyrie and things like that. So I feel like the MCU, with them being the number one and the pinnacle, all eyes are always on them anyway. If they can take the charge and be the vanguard of forward representation, having a property like X-Men and just applying those ideals to that, I feel like you said, we need those type of stories and we need those characters. So I feel like those characters are in the hands of a studio who is positioned to do that on a wide scale. And I think
I just had like an old person pop up. I'm like, if you're not gonna call them the X-Men, what the fuck are you gonna call them? Like,
I don't know.
Lisa,
I got it right
your
now.
Jets,
Easy.
cool your jets.
Easy.
Almost superior.
No, the Uncanny X-Force.
Yeah.
See,
the title's
problem
already
solved.
there.
You already fixed it.
Problem solved.
I just got out nerded. It happens all the time.
Uncanny X-Force is
Oh,
a great
old
run.
people.
Rick
It
Remender.
is
read
a
it.
great run.
Deathlock's in it, dude.
Oh, yes.
Deathlock
that.
is in it.
I'll take that. So yeah, that's where we are now. So we have that behind us.
Oh, look, here's my copy.
Yeah.
Uncanny X-Force.
Bam, I'll take it.
You should read it. It's
Aw.
fucking awesome.
Who did the art?
Esad Ribic. You love Esad
I love
Ribic.
Esad Ribic.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
It's
All right.
early Esad Ribic, but
All
it's
right,
good stuff.
I'll take it. So, ladies and gentlemen,
Jerome Pena, I believe.
hit us up on social media at ItModcast and let us know what you thought of Dark Phoenix. Maybe you loved it. Maybe you love all the X-Men
They're not
films.
going to be reaching out to us.
Don't listen to Brad. If you did, I want to hear why. I would be very much interested in your point of view.
You can tell us your point of view in a 5-star review on iTunes. Thank you very much. 5 stars only, please.
Yes, please do that. You can follow that. Actually, you know what? You can follow Brian Young, the Turtle Dork, if you missed his presence at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. And you can actually message him there and let him know that you missed him and ask him what he thought about the X-Men film.
You check out his letterbox.
Yeah.
2 stars. Too generous.
What are you looking forward to this week, Wife Dork?
What's coming out this week, Brady?
Men in Black International.
We talked about this off mic. Like, my interest in the new Men in Black film, as much as I love Tessa Thompson, has been fluctuating.
So where are we at on the needle? Where's the needle at today?
I'm after going to the movie theater like 19 times in the past week, dipped real low.
No.
Dipped real low. I love Kumail Nanjiani.
Yeah.
How do I feel about that little dude?
I like the little dude. What's your problem with the little dude? He's got that little corn cob hat.
I don't know. Just something about like the first character with a really distinct accent gets to play a little teeny tiny alien.
You should watch Men in Black again. There's a lot of awkward accents.
Yeah, and like the beard, the alien beard, that seemed intolerant.
Oh yeah.
At least it's not Balchinian.
Wow.
Balchinian is hilarious.
Okay.
You can follow her at Sidewalk Siren and at Baked Dork on Twitter and Instagram. She's also at Sidewalk Siren on Letterboxd. B, what are you looking forward to this week?
I am super stoked about 2 movies at the Alamo Drafthouse in Winchester, Virginia on Wednesday. Andy's asked me to host Film Club. They're doing a screening of the Chinese action film Savage. I'm really excited to look at that. And then on Sunday, we're having our June Still Awesome screening. And Darren, you're hosting Memento, Christopher Nolan's epic neo-noir.
That's right. That is one of my favorite films of all time.
I have not seen it in a long time.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked.
Me too. I've held off. I haven't watched it it's been a few years since I've watched it. I love that. That's one of those movies that I love so much and I've seen so many times that I can vividly remember that movie. Like I can watch it in my head like right now from start to finish. But
are you working on your intro? What are you gonna say?
No, I'm just gonna wing it.
You're gonna do it all in reverse?
I had an intro worked out, but I forgot it. I should have tattooed it to my body.
What should we shout out to take the photo instead of cheese?
Remember Sammy Jenkins.
Oh, nice. Good one.
You can follow that guy at Mouth Dork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untapped. I am looking forward to Memento. I was like Lisa. Well, mine wasn't fluctuating. It fluctuated, and then just my needle is just stuck on E. I was excited to see Men in Black, But for some reason, I'm not excited to see Men in Black anymore. But who knows? I'm still going to go see it.
Yeah.
And
it's our review cast next week.
It is, and maybe I will be pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
And come away enjoying that movie.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually actively excited about it, unlike you
I've
two
had
haters.
some
I don't know what
surprises
happened.
in the theater. I was not looking forward to Aladdin.
Mhm.
Loved Aladdin.
Mhm.
I was not looking forward to
Dark Phoenix.
Dark Phoenix.
Love Dark Phoenix.
No, that's not how reality went. I was not looking forward to Rocketman. Loved Rocketman. So if Men in Black is a secret musical, I'm like totally in.
That's what I'm looking forward to this week, seeing Rocketman. I'm going to go see Rocketman.
I
You
can't
all
wait to talk
have
about it
me
with you.
sold. You have me excited. And
Thank
I'm
goodness
again.
Brian was not here with his 2.5 stars.
Oh, Brian,
Dare?
you dodged a bullet.
Brian's allowed not to like the movie, Lisa.
Is he? Though?
I know, but I don't want him swaying Darren's opinion.
Oh no, I won't. I'm gonna go. I don't know if he swayed my opinion, like you've swayed it the other way, like with what, because he didn't mention any of what you mentioned about how it was presented, and so I'm very excited to see that. And yeah, and other than that, Memento, that movie is great. That's a perfect film. Please come out. And I want to say tickets are still available.
Yeah,
maybe?
tickets are still available, but it is filling up. It's filling
Rightfully
up.
so.
Yeah, yeah.
So
and we haven't announced the next round of Still Awesome films, but it's looking like, I guess we can tease it. But if it doesn't, this isn't the case, then I'm just lying to you. But it looks like the July screening is going to be Romeo and Juliet, the Baz Luhrmann film.
One of my faves.
And then the August screening is going to happen on my birthday,
So bring presents.
August 18th. And it's most likely going to
His
be
40th birthday.
40th
40.
it's most likely going to be Blade.
Oh, all right.
The first one. I wanted Blade too, but they've already done it.
Andy doesn't want to give you everything for your 40th
Oh,
birthday.
Brett, you're not looking forward to Shaft that's coming out this week?
Oh, I'm definitely looking forward to Shaft, my most anticipated film of the year. Tim Story Forever. I am looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to Shaft more than I am Men in Black International. Richard Roundtree's in it, dude. It's got to be good, right?
And I can be found at the Disco Dork on all social medias. I'm sorry, Brad. You know what? I hope that movie is everything you need it to be. I really do. I really do. I do.
I just rewatched the John Singleton Shaft. I gotta say, that movie's good.
Right?
It's really good.
Right?
It's better than I remembered it being.
I agree. And then I seen the trailers of this new one. All right. I am the Disco Dork at all social medias. That's going to do it for us. I really hope Shaft doesn't suck for Brad. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. And until next time. See how my voice got soothing right there?
Yeah,
That was
good.
nice.
I like it.
Okay.
ASMR.
It's warm.
Okay, bye.